you see, and then back and forth and et cetera. And it will be between you and Pastor Walker to give me the information and et cetera. Is that right?
Okay, that's good.
Okay. Okay.
Are you going to put that on Facebook? Okay, good. I'll shoot you. Wow, this camera covers up all the bad things on.
Oh, Pastor Walker, look here. Let me give you that. You see, and I think that'll sort of help you in terms of finding out a lot of other different things. I tell you, let me use it for the day. Okay. When I get through with it, I want you to take it with you. Okay? Okay.
And put them on weather and traffic.
Okay, Miss Kimbrough. All right. I don't know, Pastor. Let's see. Let's put Miss Kimbrough down here on this end, and Pastor Walker, you sit right here with me because you're sponsoring this lady. You bought Miss Kimbrough.
You want me to sit right
Yes,
here?
ma'am. Yes, so that he can say something about you before we get to you. You see.
Yeah, Pastor Walker, we go way back.
Yeah. Ma'am.
All right. Yes, so when we get through today, Pastor, I want you to take this.
You get a picture of me
with you.
Pastor
Now, that's got all of the
I'm just going to tuck this on
information about these shows and where songs. All these are Saturday, Sunday mornings, or whatever. And so this is, so we're going to call this domestic violence in Nashville, okay? And so what we're going to do, Ms. Kimbrough, I'll introduce the show, and then he'll give me some information about about background, education, and experience, and then he'll tell me something about you and why he decided to bring that you should be with us this morning, and then you can talk about yourself, and that will give us 6 minutes.
You want to talk a little bit about my educational background and experience?
Education and experience. That's what we're dealing with in this 6 minutes.
Okay.
Background, education, experience. We're not dealing with domestic violence yet, as such, you see, and we just want everybody to know. To know the two of you, you see, and so we call this domestic violence in Nashville. Pastor KWalker and Miss RKimbro4. I understand that R stands for Robin.
R stands for Robin.
Okay, very good. And so what we'll do, I'll introduce the show, Domestic Violence in Nashville. Our guest is Pastor KWalker and Miss Robin Kimbrough, Miss RKimbro4. And then we'll have Pastor Walker to give us some information in reference to Miss Kimbrough. That is, some statements. In other words, why did you bring this woman by here for us today? And he'll make those kind of statements, and that will allow you to, by the end, moving into the 4th or 5th minute, to talk about your background, is to make some statements in reference to that. And then we'll have a 2-minute break. Then we'll have a 2-minute break, and then we'll come back and deal with an 8-minute segment, and then we'll have another 2-minute break, and we'll come back and deal with a 10-minute segment. Okay, dealing with domestic violence in Nashville. And you tell us anything whatever you want to say about it. I don't know anything at all about domestic violence.
We'll start ground zero, dynamics.
Well, that's where you start.
Statistics here in Nashville.
What
does it look like for men and women?
Any way you want to, any way you think that you can deal with it, because anything that you say is helpful to me.
And you'll ask questions too.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, I just tell you, tell me about domestic violence. You
get to do all the job.
And how do you want me to do? I continuously look at you.
Just look at me. Just look at me. When you're talking.
I think I met you one time at TSU, and I think I was. I mean, that was years and years ago.
That was what semester?
I think we were in. Did you have an office in the women's building at some point?
I did.
Yeah, that's where I met you. Oh my gosh, that was just years ago.
Yes, that certainly was. That was back in I guess it must have been.
That was before I had children, so it had been after 1995.
Yeah, I had an office in the women's building one time.
I met you.
I was working for Dr. Humphreys at that time.
You right?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, I got one more show after this one, right?
Wrap him up, huh?
Okay, thanks. All right.
All right, we're ready when they get ready, and so just keep that chair. Don't move that chair. The cameras follow the chair.
Oh,
see?
okay.
And
I want to stay like this.
Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good. No problems at all.
Thank you for having me. Pastor Walker called me yesterday, and he said, I know it's last night. I said, oh, I used to go to IMF during this time, so this is fine.
Let's tuck this a little bit more. Of course, you're probably not going to see it against your black dress, but...
Okay, that's okay. Thank you. So this is great.
Give me a mic check, please.
I'm Pastor KWalker, born somewhere around somewhere.
Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is domestic violence in Nashville. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the topic of domestic violence in Nashville, Pastor KWalker and Miss Robin Kimbro. Pastor Walker has been with us on many, many occasions, and I'm sure that he really doesn't need any introduction. I think he calls himself Kevin Walker or Kelvin Walker, but he is KWalker to us here at the studio, and we're delighted to have Pastor Walker. Pastor, why don't you make some statements in reference to your background, education, experience, and then introduce Ms. Kimbro, and she'll give us an opportunity to sort of wind down this particular topic here.
All right, well, once again, Dr. Haney, thank you for having us on the show this morning. My name is Kelvin Walker, born right here in Nashville, Tennessee. I went to the public school system in Nashville, Tennessee. Didn't make it all the way through. As everybody knows, I had a negative background back then and was kicked out of all the public schools in the state of Tennessee. And nobody would let me in. So I got in some trouble somewhere down the line, and Judge Richard Jenkins thought it was necessary to send me to the military as opposed to incarcerating me in the juvenile court system. I had shot an individual when I was like age 15. And I went in there, went to the Navy, got out of the Navy. Back then you could go into the military, didn't have to have a high school diploma. But when I got out of the Navy, I went to Opportunities Industrialization Center, OIC. I got a GED through that program there, and from there I embarked on some studies out at Tennessee State University. I had a pattern and design in mind to be a fashion designer, and of course all during that period of time I was addicted to drugs all through the time I was in college until it finally took its toll on me and got the best of me and just sent me spiraling off into the streets, where I ended up committing crimes and incarcerated in the state prison system here in the state of Tennessee. Been out of there for Been away from the life of crime for some 30-something years now. I've been drug and alcohol free for 30 years. As of August the 24th, 2016, God set me free, called me into ministry. I'm now pastor in the Hands of God Christian Church, located 1545 11th Avenue North. I'm just glad to be here today and have with me a dear friend that I met some years ago on the ministry trail, and that's attorney RKimbro4, and I'll let her tell you about who she is.
Let's talk about your background education, some of your experiences, Ms. Kimbro.
Well, I am delighted to be here this morning to share with you. I am a native of Lexington, Kentucky. And I did very well in high school and really wanted to go to an HBCU when I went to college. And I did. I went to the great Fisk University. And I graduated from Fisk with honors and went on to attend Emory Law School. I completed law school in 3 years in 1995, and I was licensed to practice in Tennessee the same year. My first job was with the Tennessee Attorney General's office, and I did criminal appeals for the state of Tennessee. So in other words, when someone was prosecuted at the lower level, if the defendant chose to appeal, I would defend the appeal on behalf of the state. And I argued these cases before the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals. Then I went into private practice. And all this time I was running from a call to ministry and ended up at Vanderbilt Divinity School and answering that call to ministry at Payne Chapel AME Church. So I went to Vanderbilt as the Kelly Miller Smith Scholar. So I was really thankful for that, especially being a second career student, and I didn't have to pay tuition, so that was great. So so I was / lawyer / minister after I got my eldest orders. I did lay off from the practice of law so that I could finish up my divinity degree. And then after that, I went to work for the Tennessee Department of Children's Services, and I prosecuted dependent and neglect cases. And by that time, I got married and had 2 wonderful children, Adrian Jr. and Elizabeth. And I stopped working at the Department of Children's Services and started pastoring a full-time church called Scott United Methodist Church, and I'm still there now in Chevyville. So I went from being AME to United Methodist, not a hard sell and not a far jump or cry from my theological context. So I stayed home with my children, getting them school age. And then I went on to work for the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. And so from that job, I've gathered a lot of experience and knowledge and information on issues related to domestic violence and sexual assault. And it wasn't until I began to work at the Coalition that I did not realize the dynamics of this issue and the impact this issue had on the lives of people, especially women. During that time when I was staying home with the children prior to going to the Coalition, I worked as a magistrate, so I granted orders of protection part-time.
Okay, and we're going to take our first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break, Ms. Kimbro, and then we'll be back and talk again about some additional information. Anything that I might do. If you got some information, just put it on out. Now, this is the 8-minute segment.
Okay.
We're going to start, as a matter of fact, let's start this 8-minute segment. Let's pick up with you on this 8-minute segment. When we come back, I'll introduce you, and you pick up again. Okay. And talk for about 3 minutes, and then he's going to feed off what some of the information you're talking about, and he'll do it about 3.5 or 4 minutes, and then I'll end that segment, and then we'll get ready for our 10-minute segment. But when we come back, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. That's it.
And just start, you know, this is domestic violence now. You can start in terms of...
I'll pick up from my job, working with the Coalition, training that I do, and working with judges and magistrates.
Okay. All
on training.
With domestic violence and et cetera.
Yes.
And he'll be able to buy in with what you're saying and give his interpretation and his statements in reference to domestic violence. And I'll be able to end that particular segment for the morning. Then we'll come back for 10 minutes after that.
Okay.
Talking about this napkin right here? Yeah.
Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor KWalker and Miss Robin Kimbro. Ms. Kimbro, as an attorney, let's see if we can start off with you, Ms. Kimbro, and have you to give some information in reference to domestic violence in Nashville. Sort of give us some statistical information, or however you wish to approach it, and talk for about 3 or 4 minutes. And then Pastor Walker is going to buy into some of the things that you're talking about and make some statements, and then I'll be able to close us off for that second segment.
Wonderful. Domestic violence is the #1 call for the Metro Police Department. And these statistics concerning Nashville probably reflect national statistics that 1 out of 4 women will be a victim of domestic violence. Tennessee is ranked 9th in the nation of women who are murdered by their intimate partners, and Tennessee has been in the top 10 for as long as I worked at the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. I'm actually no longer at the coalition, but I am the president of the Nashville Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And this organization is a grassroots task force for anyone to join, churches, agencies working with domestic violence victims to come and raise awareness about domestic violence. So as I was saying before, when I started working at the Tennessee Coalition, I had no idea about the impact of domestic violence on people, especially women. A couple of things that I've learned: that domestic violence is not about anger. Domestic violence is about power and control. So I recommend to everyone to get a power and control wheel, because on the power and control wheel, it talks about or gives a visual of different types of abusive behavior. And abusive behavior is not always violent. Some abusive behavior is verbal or emotional abuse, like name calling or telling the person they'll never be anything. There's also financial abuse. Maybe the abusive partner will not allow the victim to work, or make the victim work and bring home all the money, forcing the victim to have children or not to have children. So I kind of couch those kind of actions as sexual control. So making the victim do something that he or she does not want to do sexually. So sexual control, sexual violence, all that's a part of domestic violence behavior, and it's about power and control. The other thing, so it's not about anger. I could get angry right now with Pastor KWalker here, but it doesn't mean I have to hit him or call him bad names. That is behavior that tears down his character, and it's a way for me to take control over him. And men and boys are also victims of domestic violence and sexual violence. The other piece is that alcohol is not the cause of domestic violence or getting high or drugs. The person is usually already violent. We're about to enter into the holiday seasons, believe it or not, Dr. Haney, and domestic violence increases during the holiday season. So the Metro Police Department will see a spike of domestic violence Thanksgiving and Christmas time. The other piece is that domestic violence does kill. I did not believe that when first. I really didn't understand the issue before I started getting involved with this work at the level that I am now, that batterers will kill their victims and will kill the victims' children. So if you were, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Medea's Family Reunion. It's a great display of domestic violence. One of the characters starts to abuse his partner after they get engaged. At that point, he feels like he can take control over her, like, I got her now. And then he starts abusing her with name calling. Then he starts pushing and shoving. And when she decides to leave, she tried to sneak out of the apartment. He tried to kill her and push her out of the window. Then she ends up staying, but at the end she ends up leaving. But I want to warn everybody who has seen this movie that throwing a hot pot of grits may get you an aggravated assault. But when victims end up killing their batterers, we have failed victims. So it is important that we wrap our arms around victims and give them supports and safe places to go. Victims, a lot of people say, well, why does she stay? Why does she stay in this relationship? But there are many reasons why victims stay. The main reason why victims stay is because of fear. Because just like in that Medea family reunion illustration, as soon as victims decide to leave, the batterer may ante up control, may start to become physically abusive, and then ended up becoming even more lethal with using firearms and all kinds of weapons to let the victim know that, hey, I'm going to kill you, okay? And batterers sometimes harm pets and threaten children so they can stay in these relationships. So they stay for many reasons, and housing is another. If the domestic violence shelters are filled here in Nashville, and we do have two, the YW and Morning Star. If those shelters are filled, where's the victim going to go? And she's been financially controlled. So there are a lot of reasons why victims may stay in these relationships.
And Pastor Walker.
You know, you learn a lot, you know, by listening. You may sometimes think you know a lot about, you know, the domestic violence situation and things that goes along with that, you know, being a victim of domestic violence, meaning that on March the 24th, 2015, right the day before my birthday, my daughter was murdered in a domestic violence situation. And, you know, there was no signs of it. There was no signs that she was